Welcome, guys. Thanks for joining us. It's Monday, it's KDF Live time. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're joining us from. Hi, Kelly.
Hello. Hello.
All right. Welcome, everybody. Nice to be here. So a couple of weeks ago, on our last KDF Live, somebody asked me if I would do square layering. The last KDF Live we did, I worked on the shag, so that's round concave layers. So today I'm going to work on square concave layers, and yeah, we'll just take it from there. The great thing about square, what it does basically is it gives us an even distribution of weight from back to front. So it doesn't drop towards the front, it's not going to drop towards the back, it's just going to stay very even from front to back. So when you were talking about what does it do to the face, it's a very neutral shape. So it works with round faces, it works with leaner faces. But the main thing for me, what it does is it fills in this area and this area. If we work triangular layers, what that does is it fills the area in the front end, but it takes out way more weight in the back, right? So what if we don't want it to be that drastic in the back with weight removal? Then we'll switch to more of a square shape, so that it fills this area and this area. Kind of like with this diagram I've shown you here. If you notice, like the round shape, it's really going to open this area up, whereas the square shape would fill that area in, and the triangular would fill that area in, but it would leave this and expose that area. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to work on a square shape, and we're going to work on concave layering. So yeah, let's get started. I've sectioned the head off into a standard 4 sections. I'm not using the apex or anything like that to do this. It's really based on, right behind the ear there, on both sides, down the center. So it's really just a grid that I'm going to work with. So yeah, let's get started. So it's a square shape that we're going to put over the dome of the head shape, right? So basically I'm in a box right now, all right? I'm in a room. So I'm going to use the room to my advantage to help me do this. So the first port of call, I could start this anywhere of these points. I could start my haircut here if I wanted to. I could start it here if I wanted to. Here, here, here. All right, it's a square shape. So I will start on one of the peaks of the head shape. So what you have to do is you have to identify where those peaks are, right? And what I mean by peak is where it comes to a point. So that's going to be through the center here, all the way through, right? The other peaks that we've got identified are this round of the head through here, all the way down. See, from this point backwards, the head shape turns this way. And from this point forward, it then turns that way. So I would want to start my square shape in one of these points. And then what I would do is I would bring everything to that wall of the box or the room that I'm in. And what that does is it doesn't follow the head shape then. So I'm literally putting a box over the head shape. We good?
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
So what we're going to do is we're going to start here in this front area. So I'm choosing to start my layering first. I'm not going to do anything with the length. I'll probably do the length at the end. So I'm going with the distribution of weight on the internal part of the haircut first, and then I'll work my outline afterwards. So I'm thinking that the length that I'm going to be working with is just a touch longer than my comb, all right? I'm doing that based on experience, working on this shape, and then knowing where that layer is going to fall. So I'm probably going to keep my layers in this area. My outline's probably going to be about that area, all right? If you want to, you could do the outline first. It really doesn't make that much of a difference. And what I'm doing is I'm stood over here so that my fingertips are at the peak of the head shape. See, from this point forward, the head shape drops, right? So I want to make sure that I keep this line flat, or square as it's known, right? So that allows, with that head shape turn, for me to keep my line flat and not follow the head shape. Whereas if I stood where you guys were, I would probably have the tendency to cut this. So I'll just go a touch longer. And I'm cutting a line that's flat. Straight up to the ceiling. Nice and even. So we're creating an even distribution of weight from front to back there. So when you're at the top here and you're cutting your haircuts, that line that you cut here is going to be what happens with the weight when it falls. So if I cut a line that is shorter at the front and gets longer towards the back, it's going to fall like that. If I cut a line that's shorter in the crown and longer towards the front, it's going to fall like that. All right, so this is the horizontal dimension, so this is what we know as shape. So I'm right now creating a square layer. Now on my second section, so it really gets important now, because now I'm going to affect the distribution of weight vertically by what I do with this second section. So if I bring this second section into the first, right, that means I'm going to start to see an angle. So I'm going to get a more aggressive concave, right? I'm going to go with the box. So I want to lift everything straight up to the ceiling, and I will copy the top of the box. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'm taking both sections and I'm lifting them straight up to the ceiling. I'm combing the side of the hair section, that I'm about to cut, not what I've already cut. If I comb my guide right now, that means the hair will actually get shorter, because the guide will travel and it will become shorter because of the distance it moves. So keeping it nice and clean, even. Where you guys are right now, that would be where my mirror would be. So I would face my client towards the mirror right now so I could see what my elevation is. So my next section, I'm going to get rid of number 1. I don't really need that anymore. And I'm going to take section number 3 and number 2, and I'm going to lift them up to the ceiling. Same thing all the way through, using my mirror to make sure that my elevation is on point. I did cut past the second knuckle. I've noticed people getting excited about that when I post my fingertips pointed down graduation shot. I don't have the gap in my finger. I've also been cutting hair for 27 years at an extremely high level, so I've got complete control over what I'm doing. And I use it to my advantage sometimes, depending on what I need. So now that I've actually reached the natural round of the head, this is now moving into the sides, isn't it? So what I'm going to do now is I don't have to continue to keep taking sections and wasting time. My guide is actually up here because I'm lifting everything up to the ceiling. So I can technically bring all of this up if I wish, and I can use that as a guide. And then I'm not wasting time for my guide. Notice how my elbow's down. I've not kept my elbow up. If I keep my elbow up, I might cut from short to long. So I drop it a little bit, and that makes my fingers flat.
There's a question here,
Yeah,
DJ.
please.
Yeah, this one, they ask, is this elevation or over direction?
Great question. But I think, let's just break that down.
Mm-hmm.
Things that go up and down, they're being lifted, right? Lifting is elevation. It's that simple. Over direction is to move things backwards or forwards. So this is elevation, isn't it? It's not over direction. You could call it over direction. I am technically over directing that hair. I'm moving it. But I don't want to call this over direction and this over direction, because this is elevation and this is over direction, right? Else we'd be just calling over direction to 45 degrees, over direction to 98 degrees, all that kind of stuff. So Keep it simple. So let's cross-check that. Let's go the opposite way. That's what cross-checking is. So basically I know what the line looks like this way because I stood there and watched myself cut it, and it looks great. What I don't know is I don't know how my elevation worked. All right, so me lifting every section up to the ceiling, that's what I'm checking now. So I'm just going to lift this straight up to the ceiling. I can see my flat layer through there. Have a look through. It is important to check all the way through. And really what you're looking for is to make sure that it was brought up to the ceiling. Just get rid of the thread. Mannequin head thread.
Little highlight.
Yeah. As you notice, I'm not really coming through and dusting the line or anything like that. I could do, but it looks good
It
enough.
looks good.
Yeah. So now that that's done, now I'm going to do the same thing on this side. But what I won't do is I won't change positions. So I won't come and stand here and work from the front to the back, right? The reason why I didn't do that to begin with is the front hairline is much lower than the apex is. So if I pull that up and I cut here, by the time I get to the apex, it might be too short. So I'd rather work from the highest point of the head, which is that apex, and then I know I can get that flat line. So it's just an easier process, that's all. Work smarter, not harder, right?
This question, how big of a section are you taking?
The size of my sections are sized accordingly to what I'm working on. So I'm lifting sections up to the ceiling. So there's a travel aspect to this. I'm moving through until I get to the round of the head. So my sections have to be sized appropriately that I don't change that. So I go with kind of like the width of my finger, right? And that's about the size of the sections that I take. See, what happens is if my sections go any bigger than this, then what happens is I've gone beyond the round of the head. See the curvature of the head shape? So what will happen is if I take a section to here and I lift that up to the ceiling, it's not really going to get all lifted to the ceiling. It's going to get pinched into this space, right? So it'll do that. That, when you cross-check it, is that. So when you look and you're cross-checking your work and it looks like a 5-year-old drew the ocean, right? That means you've created a bunch of corners. You just pinch sections. So if you don't have a stationary guideline, make your section smaller so that you can accommodate for the round of the head shape. That's very nerdy, wasn't it?
I liked it.
Thank you. It really is important for keeping the fluidity of your haircut together.
Yeah.
So same thing. Don't need all of that, do I? So I'll just get rid of that now. If you're concerned with the size of the sections, just half your guideline section, and that will make life a bit easier for you. If you think that they're too big and you're going to use unnecessary elevation or over direction, depending on what section you're taking, then just make them a little bit smaller. So again, taking part of my previous section as the guide for the next section, straight up to the ceiling. Combing the side of the section that I'm about to cut, not combing the guide side. If I comb the guide, I'll move it towards me, then this becomes shorter. That's what's known as a mistake.
This question, do you cross-check in the salon?
Yeah, so I always get asked this question about the salon. I'm a, 100% just an educator. I have like 5 clients that I do because I like those people. So I'm not really behind the chair like most of you guys probably think I am. I'm actually constantly teaching, and I've done that for the last 27 years. And I do cross-check in the chair. Being an educator, being a teacher, it's kind of ingrained in us to do that, you know. As a student, it's probably not the most popular thing because we don't like what we see sometimes, you know. But that's how we learn. That's how I know what you've done. If I come and cross-check your work, I can tell where you've gone wrong or what's going on in the haircut. I've reached the natural round of the head, so again I can just literally bring this all together. Now I have a stationary guideline.
It's like an elongated flat top,
Yes.
right? If you blow dried that all the way up.
That's exactly what I've just done. It's just this.
Yeah.
It's like a chef's hat. There's big tall chef hats. I like this haircut because there's something about it that makes me like tune in a little bit more. Do you know what I mean? Because it's a box, you know what I mean? It's got to be perfect.
You're putting the opposite shape on top of it.
Yeah, it's a cube, right? Cubes are supposed to be perfect, aren't they? So it really, it teaches me to be very clean and precise as I'm cutting it as well. Round shapes and triangular shapes are easy. You pull away from something. This is pulling away from all areas, right? And it's not following at any point the head shape. All right, I'm happy with that.
Mm-hmm. Jay was wondering, why do you bring all the hair together once you reach the natural round of the head? Could you please explain more?
Okay, so good question. Why do I bring that to, when I get here, why do I bring all of this? Because my guide is now here, right? I'm bringing everything up to the ceiling. So once I get to the natural round of the head, that's my guide for all of this underneath it. From this point down, it's flat. The head shape is no longer horizontal, it's now vertical. So it's the same as me over-directing things straight back. As soon as I hit this round of the head, that's the side. So I can then condense all of that because my guide is there. So that's why.
Mm-hmm.
If you work through, you endanger cutting more off and losing your guideline, plus you're just wasting time. So once you get to the round of the head, you can condense. Doesn't mean you take it all. It's all going to be determined by the density of the hair that you're working on. It's just your sections don't have to be small like your finger anymore. You can get bigger. And that's one thing that you don't want to do in haircutting, is waste time. Alright, so now what we need to do is we need to take that and move it further back. So if I stay in the same position, now I won't be working from the peak of the head shape. And as you can see from this point backwards, the head shape turns. So I actually need to work from here that way. So I'll turn her around. Let's do this side so you guys can see it. Clip guy. 3 clips on me. So what we need is we need the first section in the front as well, because we're going to use that as our guide to take this into the back now. And again, we're lifting up to the ceiling. Right now, we're cutting the roof. We've not done anything with the walls or the floor yet. We're just putting the roof in. I'm literally building something backwards. There's my guide from the front, and now I can continue my flat line and not follow the head shape. Straight up to the ceiling. Whatever reaches. And we can continue in that same manner, making sure that I take the section from the front all the way into the back. Now, could you do this all in one? You could, but you start to lose control maybe of that squareness of the haircut. It's really important to know where the peaks of the head shape are. So I find that working it this way enables you to maintain the flatness up here. Straight up to the ceiling. So I'm just bringing that hair, just combing it up to the ceiling, and there's my guide, and I'm following it. So I'm not really worried about all the separation behind my section. I'm just knowing that I bring that hair and bring it straight up to the ceiling, and my guide's going to be right next to it. I've reached the round of the head, so like we were just explaining, now the head shape isn't no longer horizontal, right? It's no longer this kind of platform. It now turns into a vertical wall. So for this hair, this is now the guide, right? Because that's the last part that I did. So I can now literally bring all of this up if I want to, or I can just take bigger sections to get through it quicker. The whole idea is to be in control of the haircut. As I pull it out. Straight, flat line. Now let's do the other side. So again, if you guys have questions, please feel free to ask. We've got loads of stuff going on right now. We've got a virtual class coming up at the end of this month, June 28th, with the lovely Miss Kelly.
Aww.
We're going to be doing Shag, Bob, Pixie class, so 3 of the most popular haircuts in the entire planet right now. It's razor focused and scissors, so it's going to be a combo of a little bit of both. And it's going to be awesome. It's a 3-hour class. Again, you guys will receive a copy. It's $35. You can follow the link in my bio to sign up for that. It's also on Kelly's page as well. And yeah, we're really looking forward to that. And we hope you guys can join us.
Very excited for
Yeah,
that.
it's going to be fun, that one. I mean, obviously we've been doing this quite a bit together.
Yeah.
And it's going to be nice to let you do your virtual thing. Good. Butterfingers. I'm really excited. Sorry, guys.
Virtual classes. Yay.
Yeah, and as you guys know, KDF Live, it's a weekly thing that we do. It's completely free. There's no memberships or anything like that. You don't have to sign up for stuff. And we're generally here every Monday, and if we're not here every Monday, we make up for it. We'll be there another day. Yeah, so make sure you keep tuning in. Let your friends know too. It really helps us out and supports us. So same thing on this side, guys, just taking that section all the way from front to back and lifting straight up to the ceiling.
We're doing in-person classes now too, right?
Yeah, I just did a private class yesterday here at the factory. So we've started doing in-person classes again, and we've got our July classes are sold out, but we have 2 classes in August 22nd and 23rd. There's a few spaces left in the 22nd one and the 23rd. All the classes are limited in size. We only allow 7 students per class. So that helps us keep it nice and clean and safe in here. And also makes sure that you guys get a better class situation because there's not as many people and we can spend more time with you. And again, you can follow the link in my bio to do that. She just doesn't want
She's
to
unruly today.
Probably me. All right.
Yeah, the hands-on classes are in San Diego at the salon, and we're called The Factory.
Yeah, we do the in-salon classes, my salon here in San Diego. We also travel. I'll be in Mississippi this coming weekend teaching a 2-day Knowledge Destroys Fear class. And if you're interested in booking us to travel and stuff, just follow the link on my profile page, or just send me a direct message and I'll get you linked up to who takes care of all our bookings and stuff. All right, so now we've done that. Let's have a quick look at it. Again, straight up to the ceiling, right? So if I would have brought that hair into the middle, then this line would do that. So if you're wanting to protect more weight on your outline, then elevate in more towards the center, all right? Okay, so let's do the sides. So now we're going to move into the sides, all right? I'm not just going to lift everything up to the ceiling and call it a day. It's not technically a square layer. Yeah, no, you can see what it's doing, right? So I'm going to come through now and I'm going to work through the sides here and I'm going to create this, right? So we've got this on top. Now we're going to take this corner off and we're going to create that flatness through the sides now. So what does this fall into, right? People call it flat layering, okay? Yes, it's definitely a flat line that I'm cutting, but it falls into the category of concave. So that's what I'm going to be doing. I'm working with a concave layer. Where do I start this, right? So again, we're going to start on the peak of the head shape. So if that's the peak of the head shape there, it actually follows all the way down. So I'm going to start right here above the ear. Take my vertical section right above the ear. And now what I'm looking for is I'm looking for the length of the round of the head. So where is the round of the head? Put your comb on the head. Where it touches, that's the peak, that's the round. Right? So that's where I'm going to get my guide from. Now if you're like, oh, I'm not so sure about that, get rid of the hair that you don't want to use as a guide and leave the hair that you do. So I've got the hair at the natural round of the head and I'm going to use it as a guide. So you see those short lengths at the top? That's the hair at the round of the head. So for safety, I'll just go out a little bit more and I'll take that corner off. Now, again, flat, all the way down. And if you notice, this is the highest point of the hairline. So look where I am. I'm starting here. So the hairline drops from this point and it drops from that point. So by starting here, I know that I'm going to be protecting length. Okay, so now let's do the rest of it. Vertical sections. So if I brought everything up to the ceiling, now I've got to send everything to this imaginary wall. But I have a wall here, so I'm just going to send it to that board right there. So how do I make sure that that happens? It's all about my body position, right? So it's all about where I plant my feet. I know that I'm cutting on the outside of the fingers, which is what I just did because it gives me elevation, right? Now I'm going to work this way. But if I was to move my right foot, then it's going to change where I pull the hair to, right? It's really, really, really important that you understand the way you plant your feet will greatly affect what you do in your haircut, right? It's like one of the most common sense things to me. Because look, if I stand over here, I can't reach the hair. It's that simple, do you know what I mean? So where I put myself is going to determine where I pull the hair to. So I want to make sure that I'm pulling it straight out from the head shape. So I need to make sure that my feet are actually parallel to what I'm doing. And there it is. So by doing that, we've got a flatness up here and now a flatness down there. So what that should have done is it should have created a corner right at the round of the head. So that is this and this coming together. So working through step by step, again using my previous section as a guide. Now, if I'm not very sure of where this is being directed to, I can drop the mannequin down or the client down so I can see over the top of the section. I could also put my mirror here, right? So there's a reason why your chair unlocks and it spins around, you know? So I could just do that and I could face you guys now and you could see exactly where that hair is going, because that would be the mirror angle. Nice and flat. So this can be done on any length. It's just technique. It doesn't have a specific length to work on. I've chosen to work on longer because I don't want to cut all this mannequin's hair off. But this technique could be used on much shorter shapes. Making sure everything gets brought to that wall. Not bad. I'll take that.
Well done.
Cool. So now, let's do this part. And again, I need to send it to the wall. So I guess the thing with this haircut is just the control. Consistently in control of it. Utilizing the mirror, your surroundings to help you. So what would have happened if I'd have just done the top and not done any of the sides? That's the quintessential Christmas tree layer, isn't it? The Grinch layers. So my body position, right, I told you about my feet, but I'm also in a position where the cutting line is centralized to me. So I can actually see that line, and I'm actually then bringing it to the right place. If I'm over here, then I'm stretching, right?
Yeah.
And if I'm too far past it, then I'm going to start to pull it in places it doesn't need to be. So literally I'm cutting through the center of myself. Why? Because then I can see it. If the line's over here, then this eye's not going to do me any good, is it? You know what I mean? It needs to be right in the middle of me so I can see the balance of everything.
I've just misunderstood. Did he use the round of the head to determine the guide for the length of the, yes, the round of the head.
Yeah, so the guide came for the sides came from the length of the round of the head. So I pulled this out and I looked for the length at the natural round of the head where the head turns into the sides underneath.
And then a question about what's written on your wall back there, the gold.
That's basically the theory of haircutting. That's from our theory class that we do. I'm sure I'll schedule another theory class soon. It's done virtually. Can't see my guide. Need to get more hair. There it is. See, one of the things about the guide is I can feel the guide. I don't necessarily have to see it, but if I can't feel it, then I won't be able to see it at all. So it's very important that I move back a little bit to make sure that I can. Because if you cut blindly, then there's no excuse when you make a mistake. You know what I mean? So you see now, look at the length drop off in the back. Why does that happen? Because the hairline drops. Again, I'm not doing anything with this yet. So if I don't do anything with my outline, this copies whatever the hairline is. So you can see that there's a little gap here. Why is there a little gap there? Because there's a little gap there. So if the hairline was like from here all the way through, it would be a different case, but it's not. So that's what happens if you don't start with your outline. You actually get a softer outline and it will drop off in the back because that's what your hairline does. Again, we're going to come through afterwards and make that more even.
Ben Brown says, hi, DJ.
Hi, Ben Brown. Hope you're doing well, pal. Getting ready for the Euros this weekend. Sports ball.
Sports ball.
Sports ball, that's what Kelly calls it.
Points, points, points.
Win, win, win. Yeah, I'm going to be teaching this weekend for the first game of the Euros. So I'll miss that one, but I'll be back in time for the others, that's for sure.
We'll get you like a little ear pod so you could listen.
Oh, trust me, it'll be there somewhere.
Yeah. Clips today.
So I worked all the way to centre back, and I've brought everything over to you guys so that I could create the sides of this haircut, so create the walls. So right now, it's dropping off and getting heavier towards the centre back. So it's like this right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's not until I actually come through the back area and do the same thing and pull this back, will I then create that corner where the two meet, and then the shape will be level.
Mm-hmm.
So let's do the other side now as well. Turn her around. Okay, so body position on this side, there's a couple of different ways you can do this. And I'm going to say go with what feels better for you. What you'll see is you'll see a lot of people doing things and then you try it and you're like, wow, that's really difficult. And that's because that's how we were taught, and we also wanted to be able to do it the most difficult way possible, right? And some of the hand positions are easier than others. I'm definitely going to work on the outside of my fingers, not the inside. If I work on the inside, I always will have that tendency to pull the head down. And so I want to be able to lift if I need to protect something. So I'm going to continue to work on the outside of my fingertips, on my fingers, excuse me. But on this side, I'm going to choose to work with my fingertips pointed down still. So that means now that I've actually stood in front of the model or the mannequin, client, whatever. Now this is also an option to work through. This is how I was taught. Very barbering this, and that's how a lot of Vidal Sassoon things were taught. And that would be to work on the outside of your fingers this way. Now, I'm trained to do that. A lot of people aren't, so it's like trying to ride a bike for the first time and you've never ridden a bike. So, you know, it would take practice. It can also get very painful for the wrist as well. So, how you hold the hair is very important when you work in this way. Don't put the palm to face the head shape, because then that's going to bend your wrist quite a lot. And really all it is when you are working in this particular manner, guys, is to actually have the palm face you. What that means is the finger is going to face you guys, right? The famous finger, right? So that's how I would do it if I'd be working on the outside of my fingers, fingertips pointed up. But again, I'm going to choose to work it in a more comfortable position. And that means to just shift, that's all. Drop this down a little bit. So again, getting my length from the natural round of the head shape. So getting rid of the top part, I don't want any of that. I want to get my length from here. That's the round of the head shape. And that's what we're going to do. So you see that shorter hair at the top? That's the guide. So I'm going to meet that. So now what I've done is I've just created myself nice sharp corner. And we'll move towards the face to begin with. Get that front in there. Again, combing the side of the section you're about to cut. So I don't want to comb this side because I'll move that guide towards me. That's a very quick way of making a mistake in haircutting. And you're going to see people do it, but they've got a lot of control that you are seeing do that. So really all we're doing is teaching you some habits that will actually make it a bit easier for yourself.
It's like quality control.
Yeah. It's funny when you watch people in the industry and at like what level they're at of experience and what they get excited about and the work that they produce and put out and that. And for a lot of us older, or not necessarily older, but more experienced, it's kind of we've been there, we've played with a lot of those things and that. So I like to see what other people are doing all the time, to see their progress on how they're learning.
It's so accessible now too.
That's the thing, we can see what people are doing now.
Yeah.
The influence is bigger now. Like I see my influence on people more now than I ever used to. You know, I definitely always see it in the Paul Mitchell crew because I wrote their entire curriculum. Mm-hmm. So I see that a lot, but I see it in other people now, and it's really nice. There's a lot of talented people out there, that's for sure. Another thing that I've been asked to do, is it nice and clean? Is one of the ambassadors and judges for the International Precision Cutting Championships. Sounds very good, that, doesn't it? It's quite a mouthful. But yeah, that's kind of nice to be asked to be involved in that. It's, you know, part of that community, that Vidal Sassoon community. So it's really nice of Dove to ask me to be involved again. And you guys can find any information on that at the IPCAA, is it, I think? CC, that's it, on their Instagram page. Or you can find the link on my page. So that you can join and enter if you want to get into that.
People really love that.
Yeah, precision cutting is quite a thing. And it's nice to see its kind of popularity has come back.
Mm-hmm.
I think more so the popularity is spread, like worldwide. People are into it. It's not just a Sassoon thing anymore, you know? It's everybody.
Ira says, yeah, Giza.
What's up, Giza? Continuing, just nice clean sections, vertical sections, making sure I can always see the guide and making sure that my sections aren't too big, that I'm actually changing where I over direct the hair to. Alright, so make the sections accordingly sized for you to control the shape of the haircut. So my guide is traveling. So the worst thing I can do with a traveling guide is take giant sections. So I'll be very thin or fine with my section in here.
Are these videos going to be saved on your IGTV? Yes.
Okay, so what we do is we go live literally every week, guys, and the whole point is to give you something to reference to make you a stronger, more confident haircutter. So all of what we do goes onto my IGTV and it stays there. There's so many tutorials in there. There's a lot of the same ones, but there are loads that we've filmed over the past year or so. I haven't been doing this
Yeah,
for
a lot.
And it's all free, so you guys can access that at any time on my IGTV. We do it every week, and it's not just me. Kelly cuts hair, Katie cuts hair. And yeah, just join us and follow us. It really helps us out as a channel. It supports us and it enables us to come and do this for you guys.
And it's fun to nerd out on all these haircuts with everybody.
Yeah, it is. It's good.
It is.
It's good for us and it's good for you guys, I feel. Also, if you have any requests, you want to see us work on specific things, let us know, and we might do that. We might not. Somebody asked me if I would do some barbering.
Yeah, barbering.
Yeah, I'm good. I've done enough of that. I'm not really wanting to do too much more of that. But the principles of haircutting are exactly the same with barbering as they are with cutting longer hair. It's still to pull away from what you want to keep. That's what we do as haircutters, regardless of gender and all that stuff. So I'm bringing everything over to that wall. So I've worked to the center back, everything's been brought over, and I've cut the flat layer. Alright? So what we've got right now, guys, is we've got a weird mullet going on.
My favorite
Because the
kind.
only thing that's not being cut is the back. So right now, we've got this going on through here. We've not got anything really happening through here yet. So I could leave that and you've got this really interesting square layered mullet. But we really want to make it a full square. Right now this back is getting heavier towards the centre back. So now what I've got to do is come through from the centre, which again is a peak of the head shape. The head shape turns away from that point. So if I work from the middle, I can now pull the hair straight back and it won't follow the natural curvature of the head shape. And again, I will create a corner where the two meet. So literally we're putting a box over a dome. And like I was saying before, this could be on numerous different lengths. I think we're kind of going with a more of a medium length with this towards when it's finished. Kind of in that long bob genre, right?
A lobbert.
Yeah, not my favorite words. But that's what it is. That's what InStyle magazine has called it. So that's what we must call it.
I like listening to your IGTV on the way to the shop. It's like a podcast mental setup for the day.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's
Thank
cool.
you. Yeah. We're glad you guys are enjoying it.
And then lots of requests to see more graduated bobs on our
Cool,
streams.
yeah, definitely. You're talking about my favourite haircut there, so I could do those until I'm blue in the face, till the cows come home. But yeah, we'll definitely, next one round, I'll do the graduated bob. I just did a really cool haircutting class yesterday along the lines of the so-called French bob, even though I'm in America. I think it's an American bob.
San Diego bob.
The San Diego bob. East Village downtown. 902, 92101 bob. But it's something I wanted to do, and I'd done it a few weeks back when I was in Vegas with my good friend Ira. We did a charity event. And, I see Kelly do it quite often with the razor and that, so I wanted to kind of do a variation of it myself, so maybe I'll teach that one next time. It's a good one. Little cool way of doing a graduated bob and not without it being so difficult.
Yeah.
It's quite a challenging haircut. All right, so now let's do this back area. So what we're doing is the same thing. We're looking for that round of the head, right? Well, this is the crown. It's a bit different to this part, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So really, all I'm looking at is where is the round of the head here. Because that's got to be where I get my guide here. It's got to be in line with it, right? So that's probably what I'll do is I'll actually take that and I'll use that as the guide. So the hair at the top of this section, I'm going to use as the guide. There it is. Let's have a look, let's see. I might be a little bit lower, right? So I can go up higher. The key thing is I don't want to cut too much off. Always start longer, you can always go shorter. And in this case in the haircut, I want to start longer and move down to it. So if I take this and this, are they the same in length? No.
Oh.
Just a touch longer, so I know that I need to get my guide a little bit higher up here. Now we're talking.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm happy with that. So now coming through, and again, fingertips pointed down, cutting line through the center of myself. All the way down to that neck. So now what do I do with my sections? I bring everything to that wall behind the mannequin. going to start to run out of hair at some point because I'm going to be reaching the side area which has already been cut, and that's happening now. So right where the natural round of the head is, that's where I'm starting to run out of hair, and that's where I want it to run out of hair because that's where the corner is going to be.
Mm-hmm.
Corner.
Look at it.
Lovely little corner.
Yeah.
Lovely little clouds.
I think that was a big thing for me, like learning as a hair cutter, that you, even though you're pulling out a section, doesn't mean that there's always going to be hair to reach to cut.
Yes. You're going to run out at some point.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And because this has already been done, I've already got most of that in there. So it's really just going to be that piece. Once I get to here, if anything's coming off, that means I've gone too short in the back.
Right. And it would feel like a mistake if we're pulling it out and you're not cutting anything, but actually it's you're doing it correctly.
Exactly. There doesn't have to always be something to cut. And I
Right.
think that's one of the problems. People are always looking for something to cut. And then they cut something and then it's like, oh, I've got a hole in my haircut. How did that happen? You know, so yeah, it's... And I think that's what's great about Knowledge Destroys Fear is it is a class that gives you the ability to understand this stuff, to know what you're doing. You know, I always use the analogy of learn how to fly the plane. Don't hit autopilot. Don't just copy what somebody else did and expect that to look great on everybody. There's going to be someone that it looks terrible on, right? And that's probably going to happen at some point in your career. So being able to control the haircut and vary it to the individual, I feel, is essential. That is what a haircutter is supposed to know what to do. And so really what it's doing is we're giving you a kind of a common knowledge, a common language, so that you aren't afraid. You're not fearful. Fear literally kills confidence. Right? But knowledge destroys that fear. So it enables us to then, once we know all those ingredients, we know the mechanics of hair cutting, then you're able to do what you want with it. You know what I mean? Another analogy, that's a chef. You know what I mean? A cook's not a chef, he's doing what the chef tells him to do. Right? So I want to know all the ingredients and how it works.
Be the Gordon Ramsay.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's it. He's a master in what he does, isn't he?
Yeah.
Gordon Ramsay. So he has a specific standard, and he knows how to get you to achieve that. It includes a lot of screaming and throwing of pots and pans. But, you know, certain things are different to teaching haircutting. Like, the haircut is not a thing where your teachers should be yelling at you or anything like
Right.
that to motivate you. It's not like that.
The hair yogi, yeah.
Hey, yogi, that's cool. I
That's
like
good.
that one. I think it's very important when you learn something that you really identify the what, the why, the how, and the when, right? That's extremely important, so that you're not literally just showing or sharing something, you're actually teaching, you know? And a lot of what I teach is the what if. Not just the how and why and when you do things, but what if you did it this way, or what if you stood over here and did that? All those questions that you ask me, I've played with those things. So that's, as an educator, that's what you should be doing if you're teaching. Don't just be someone that's a stylist and they've got some cool tricks, you know what I mean? Teach the essentials. So I'm just cross-checking through the back now. And I'm looking at the shape, looking at it horizontally. That's telling me where I've over-directed it to. the line that I see back here lets me know if I brought this hair to the right place. And we did good.
Mm-hmm.
Let's have a look for the cut. It's there, somewhere. There it is.
There it is. Yay.
Corner. Cool. Alright, so that's the inside. Now let's look at the outline. It's the last thing that I'm going to do. A lot of people generally will start with that. But I decided I wanted to do the inside first, and then I can come through and work this afterwards wherever I want it to be.
That's a big thing in breaking training too, right?
Yeah, a lot of the times people are quite surprised when I teach longer layering. I never start with my outline. I always go to the actual thing that we're doing, which is layering, and then I hit the length afterwards. You know, unless your client is having an extremely major change, do you know what I mean? If you know the client who's got long hair, they're probably having it skimmed this much, right?
Yeah.
So I don't start down here, I'll start with the inside because that's what counts at that point, you know? We're going to maintain length, so let's not start there. Now, that being said, it's very important that you know what's going to cut your length off and what's not, how to protect it, even if you're starting on the inside. So, I know that I'm cutting a box, so basically everything, this is the same as this and the same as this, so my length should be the same as what this is. So, there's my comb, so I'm a couple of inches longer than that. So, when I'm looking at my length here, that's what I'm going to look at. Right, there's the hairline. So I can just skim it off around this area. Let's get her up a bit. My back hurts.
Yeah. There's a question, will you dry it for later?
I'll let it dry naturally.
Yeah.
That's going to be the look for this one. And you know, a lot of people are asking, where's the finished result? This is not that kind of thing. This is not a, hey, look how good a DJ is at cutting hair. This is purely educational for you guys. So you blow dry this and style it how you want. It's not really about me, so I don't really go through and start blow drying and that with these shapes. Really, it's just not what I'm looking to do. I'm looking to just pass on the information, and you then do what you want with it. You blow dry this however you want to. Because everybody's a little bit different.
Right.
You know?
There's a million ways to style.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, as we've noticed, styling now is very loose, it's very hand-based, and that. So, you know, that's why I work with this particular mannequin, because it's got texture like people are actually wearing and going for. As soon as we start emoing hair out again and flat ironing it, don't worry, I'll get on that.
I'm so excited.
Yeah, I'm too.
Yeah.
During that time period, I was a platform artist for Paul Mitchell, and just traveling the world doing emo bangs. I even did the colour, and I'm not a colorist. All right. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's square layer tutorial. It's just a classic square layer. Again, it can be done on different lengths. You do it the same way, but obviously you can go shorter, you can go longer. Play around with it, see what it does. The thing I love about this particular shape is that it's very neutral. There is no drop off of weight. Mm-hmm. It's very level and very even. So it is a nice long bob look.
Now, there's a question about which mannequin this is that you use.
This is the pivot point, and it's the viola.
Yeah.
Viola or viola. And you can use my code for pivot point, which is KDFED, KDFED, and you get a 20% discount on that, which helps because mannequins and tripods aren't cheap. And I do love these mannequins. They're, you know, they're made very well. They're not made by somebody that's not supposed to be making it, you know what I mean? There's no child labor involved or anything like that, so it's a really good company for that. They have great teaching tools that you can use that I use for my theory classes and stuff like that, you know, like expanded forms of shape and that, so you can identify and show people what's what. But yeah, you can use my code, that's KDFED, and yeah. So, as you can see, it's quite a nice lob look. It's a square layer, so my layers are even throughout this. And literally, we just did this. That's what I've just done to the entire shape. So yeah, thanks again for joining us. I'll be away next week, so I'm pretty sure one of the girls will be with you for a KDF Live. And I want to wish you guys a happy week. Have a good, successful week in your salons. And don't forget to join us again. Again, you can watch all the IGT videos in my IGTV. And happy learning. And we'll see you next time. Thank you very much. Again, follow us, tell your friends. It helps us out a lot. Cheers.
Cheers, yay.
See you guys. Thank you.